As video game enjoyers, we all have never-ending backlogs that somehow keep growing no matter how much we play them. Despite me wanting to get through that darned backlog, I constantly get pulled back into replaying the same games that I know inside and out, whilst the games I've bought but never touched just sit in my library gathering dust. Bethesda games are notoriously good at tempting people to replay them, and for me personally, Skyrim is the worst offender, a game that I've made a yearly tradition of replaying for almost a decade now. And if you are thinking of going into the comments to tell me how bad of a game Skyrim is, just know that you are not loved. But why do we keep coming back to certain games years after their release? What makes me want to start up another playthrough of Skyrim? What makes a game timeless? Starting with, I've noticed that if a person finishes a From Software game, it's incredibly likely that they'll want to revisit it at some point. For me, it's always been about the build potential that's pulled me back in, especially to Dark Souls 1. In Souls-likes, making a balanced mix of several classes isn't entirely viable, and you're usually encouraged to go all in on one or two aspects of your stats. So whenever I play a new Souls-like, I usually start with a dex build, relying on dodges, staying nimble, learning every enemy's movement just so I can get a hang of the game and its mechanics. But after that first playthrough, everything opens up. So in Dark Souls 1, you can go full strength and do a bonk build, which lets you tank hits and absolutely obliterate anything in your way with a giant hammer. Or go mage and kill bosses from a safe distance. Or pyromancy and turn people into fried chicken. Dark Souls 1 is especially replayable because once you've explored the world, the map layout becomes second nature. Every area is interconnected and you can pick and choose the order you do things. You likely already know the fastest route to the weapon you want. You can rush past the parts that you don't enjoy and instead spend that time doing what you do enjoy. Dark Souls keeps me coming back through experimentation. There's always something new I want to try, a build or a way to make my character busted. But that's not the only way a game can be mechanically deep. There are very few franchises I can think of that have not only survived for several decades, but actually thrived. Fighting games like Tekken and Street Fighter have been alive for over 30 years, and it's generally not because of the stories or the worlds, but rather because the skill ceiling in these games is pretty much infinite. You can always be quicker, more unpredictable, there's always more combos to learn. The meta never stops evolving, and because of that, the competitive scene for these fighting games is still huge. From people playing these in arcades in the early 90s, to people still playing them now at huge arenas, thousands of people gathering to watch pros scrap it out on a franchise that is way older than myself. Now, I don't play much fighting games, button mashing is about all I'm capable of, but you can't argue with 30 years of packed arenas. If that's not a sign of timelessness, I don't know what is. Dark Souls and Tekken are entirely different games, but they share one thing. People keep coming back to them because there's always something left to chase. Because mechanically, these games are designed to never let you feel like you're fully done with them. Another way that games stay timeless is through providing the player with... At a time when most games were handing the player a story to follow, putting you on a path with fencing on the sides so you don't stray too far from it, The Elder Scrolls did something wildly different. It just gave you a world to play in, an enormous sandbox and the freedom to do whatever you wanted in it. Skyrim was my first Elder Scrolls game, and despite me believing that Daggerfall, Morrowind, and Oblivion have a lot more going for them in terms of writing and role-playing mechanics, Skyrim is the one people keep coming back to, including me. My favorite video I've ever made on this channel was an appreciation for the weirder side of it. The things you wouldn't hear about in an ordinary game review, like the way it makes you feel, the heavy atmosphere it creates, the surrealism, and that is part of the reason why we return to it all these years later. But the other part is obviously the mods.
Twirl, honey, twirl, and twirl, honey, twirl.
Skyrim has the largest modding community in the world, and the stuff that people have been creating in it for the past 15 years is unbelievable. Due to Skyrim essentially being a sandbox, you can mod your game to basically be whatever you want it to be. I've had a playthrough before where I was just a traveling bard. I got paid for putting on performances in taverns with the old loot. And that, alongside the survival mode, was a super awesome and immersive experience, because then I would use that money to buy myself food or a room to stay in. I like to mod my games to make me feel like I'm actually living in them, rather than just being the typical Dragonborn, Fus Rodaing guys off cliffs, although that is still very cool. It can get even crazier, and you can literally make your Skyrim an FPS, but yeah, that's not for me. Mods give you a reason to return to a game for a variety of different things, whether it be for new content and storylines, visual upgrades, or just simply quality of life improvements. There's something there for everyone, and Skyrim is the perfect vessel for you to play God in and act out all your fantasies.
On some lusty Argonian maid types.
Not only is Skyrim the perfect sandbox for mods to take place in, another reason why the modding community has survived and thrived for all these years is because Bethesda has been actively supporting mod development for years. From releasing official creation tools to bringing mod support to consoles, this allowed me to experience Skyrim in a whole new light back when I was on my PS4, before I ever had a PC. And there aren't that many games that provide such extensive accessibility to mods. Some developers are even actively against such a thing. Make no mistake, vanilla Skyrim is an incredible game, but it wouldn't be nearly as popular as it is now if it wasn't for the mods. Stellaris is the type of game I never expected to like, let alone love. But guess what? It now sits comfortably in my top 20 of all time. If you know me and what types of games I typically enjoy, this may come off as a shock to you.
A strategy game? But Anti, you like immersive role-playing games. What are you doing on Stellaris?
Well, my good friend, what if I told you that Stellaris is both a role-playing game and immersive? The very universe is my oyster here. I can control an empire of my choice, whether that be a humanoid, alien, or even robot civilization. In the Empire creation menu, there are so many options that it's kind of overwhelming. Do you want a dictatorship, or a hive mind civilization that acts as one being? What are the ethics and morals of your empire? Some runs I try to create peace within the galaxy, while other times I just want to take control of it, or summon a demon that'll swallow the very existence of space. Your civilization can become a trade hub, or it can simply be an indestructible killing machine. Not to mention that it's constantly getting new content DLCs, meaning new alien species or endgames. Every Stellaris run is its own sci-fi movie. No two playthroughs ever look exactly the same, partly because you decide what role you want to play, and partly because you can't really predict what other civilizations will be like, whether you'll succeed in befriending them, or if you get unlucky and spawn in the middle of 3 psychopathic murderous empires. The point is, Stellaris allows you to tell your own stories, and that is right up my alley. I keep coming back to it because I don't think I'll ever be able to see everything. There's just so much content to play around with in this crazy sci-fi playground. But you don't need to have infinite narratives for people to keep returning to your game. Sometimes all you need is one amazing story. With my YouTube channel, I typically try to aim for videos under 20 minutes long. That's just my sweet spot. But there was one anti-extra video that you might never get to see. A 4-hour-long essay on Red Dead Redemption 1. I dedicated months and months to writing and recording it, but eventually just got burnt out. Whether that video ever releases, only the gods know. But that just goes to show how passionate I am about RDR1. I love the gameplay, the combat is satisfying, the map is interesting to explore, the characters are whimsical and are all designed to represent different ideas and themes. But what I love most about Red Dead 1 is the overall story and messages it tries to tell. You are John Marston, a retired outlaw forced back into a world of crime and danger as your family is being held hostage by the government. It's a sad story about a man who just wants to live a normal life, but the institutions have other plans for him. Throughout the game, John learns that no matter how hard he tries, his past will always catch up to him. This commentary on history, on trying to be a better person, on institutions using people rather than protecting them, these are timeless themes that we see again and again in the most memorable media. These are stories that anyone can connect to at any point in time, whether that be in 2026 or 3026, because government control and immorality will never not be issues. Agent Ross, Abraham Reyes, Dutch van der Linde, these characters are written in a way that they're more stereotypes than real people. They all represent a different message that Rockstar is aiming to tell. In the case of Ross, he is the face of the institution that free-spirited people hate. He uses people before simply discarding them in the most heartless way possible. Reyes is a revolutionary who presents himself as open-minded and caring, but once you actually meet the guy, you find out that he's just as corrupt as the people he's trying to take down. Even though you might not think it, you and I can connect with John's story in some way, whether that be trying to leave your history in the past, regain a loved one, corruption. I think the theme we can unanimously agree on is how pointless war is. It doesn't benefit anyone but the lizards at the top, just like with the Mexico Revolution storyline. Narratives like Red Dead's are timeless, and that's why this game is still constantly spoken about nearly 2 decades later. I could name a million similar examples of timeless writing, but Metal Gear Solid is one I simply can't ignore. I'm personally not a big fan of the series, but even I understand its massive impact and the commentary it presents. Metal Gear Solid 2 is in a particularly interesting boat, because while the story wasn't immediately timeless when it came out, it was actually criticized for being confusing and pretentious, it did eventually gain relevance over the years, and especially in an age of artificial intelligence, slop, and censorship, this is the most relevant it's ever been. The internet is such a powerful thing, but it's also so manipulative. Once a blue moon, I decide to check out Facebook, and it is appalling how many old people are falling for the most blatantly fake shit. It can be as harmless as an AI-generated video of a dog, but I've also seen political grifters tricking these old people into believing some real dangerous shit. And from what I understand, that's the exact story that Metal Gear Solid 2 is trying to tell. That's pretty much it, man. Dark Souls, Skyrim, Metal Gear, these games are all wildly different, but they're all still constantly spoken about and replayed for a multitude of reasons. It makes me wonder what newer games will become timeless classics like this in the future. My favorite ever game, Cyberpunk, is aging real well with its writing and all that Night City means and represents, so that's an obvious contender for me. If you'd like to see more of these types of videos, consider liking this one. I'm gonna clock out now. See ya.